Welcome to the Kickstart Your Edge Play to Win Leadership Podcast,
where we've flipped the script with our groundbreaking modus operandi to bring you real, relevant, and relatable tactics and techniques to master your own play to win mindset.
Talk about a superpower. It's time to iron your cape.
What we know for sure is what got you here won't get you there.
You can't see the spinach in your own teeth.
And finally, hang on, because this one is really deep. Once you realize that you are the traffic, everything makes complete and unadulterated sense.
Welcome to the Edge, where playing not to lose is not an option.
Hello, Jen.
Hi, Kara.
Do you know what you did on February 20th, 2017?
What did I do?
Well, we purchased a book called Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. Now, I'm just wondering, did you change your brain and change your life from that book?
Okay, so in all fairness, I don't know if it's from the book.
Okay.
But I will say I constantly change my brain.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
If I even look back to 2017 to today, I've changed my brain a lot.
Oh my gosh, big time. And it's funny because, it's January. We were cleaning stuff out at the end of the year. And ironically enough, I found the hand-brain glove. So we've been pretty obsessed with the whole brain thing for years now. And I agree with you. I think that we continually change our brain because, hello, you know why?
Why?
Because we can.
We can. I love it. It's so interesting about changing your brain. So we'll just riff on this for a moment. I think a lot of changing the brain is really taking a look at the way we think about things. So, I wonder how come I have that perspective. I wonder, why that's the default thought. Or I wonder where this thought even came from. So it's just kind of interesting. It's about getting super curious about the way we think about things. And there's a lot of power in that because if you think about it, Karen Sullivan, every single thing that has ever been created by humans has been created from a thought someone had. No exceptions.
No, it has to be, right? It has to be a thought before there can be any kind of result coming from it. Because you can't not think about something and get something.
Right, and it's interesting because some things are created through mistakes, right? So take the Post-it. Don't know the story, but apparently that was from something that didn't work.
Right.
But it's then the thought of what do I do with the mistake of what I was trying to do? What's the opportunity here? How could we use this? What can I envision? So everything, whether it's something that happened, but it's a thought that's put out in the world that determines this cup is here, that we have these headphones, that, a light bulb works. Like all of those things are all created by a thought. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. And Jen, this goes to a little bit of what we were talking about, I don't know, last week or the week before with, the comfort zone. Because to get out of your comfort zone, you need to change. And that requires a new thought, which will eventually, change your brain. And so often we think about things, why is change so hard? Wouldn't it be great if we were all just like, okay, yeah, I want to start meditating for an hour a day. Boom, done, right? Probably not going to happen because it takes a little while sometimes for the change to happen, but it starts with the thinking of that actually happening.
That's a really good example. So I have been for years, probably longer than 2017, been always like, I need to meditate. I should meditate. It'd be great if I could meditate. Karen has tried to trick me into meditating.
I have.
And different things to have me follow through on my word. And it just didn't stick until I had a new thought about meditation, right? So that thought was, what if I use the time to just watch the way my brain works And that was the game changer for me. I have meditated more regularly in the last, I'd say, 4 months or so since I had that thought.
Pretty much.
And it's because the purpose, the reason, the compelling desire to make me actually follow through on the action was the moment I saw, if I could just watch the way my brain thinks, if I could use this to master my own mindset, wouldn't that be interesting? So it felt much more like an experiment versus an experience. And that was enough to get me going. So I had to change my brain by having a thought that gave me a different perspective and buy-in onto why I wanted to meditate in the first place.
And it's interesting because the end result now is you're meditating versus the resistance meditating, but your brain needed to change. But it's interesting because meditation is actually one of the things that helps your brain change.
I know it's a little bit
Little
ironic,
trippy, yeah.
right? But if we don't allow ourselves to think, we can't create anything. And if we don't think on purpose, we don't create anything purposeful. So it's really about giving yourself the time and the space to think so that you can create that in the world,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so one of it is that our brain doesn't always like change. You know, it loves that easy path and going to the old default and holding on to beliefs that we've just learned and we've recycled in our head time and time and time again. And so part of it is if you started paying attention to what it is that you think and you decided to think on purpose, you can really start to change your brain.
And you know, it's funny, Jen, because I have a bunch of thoughts spinning through my head right now about that, right? One of them is your brain is kind of like a computer. And sometimes with your computer, right, you really need to reformat the hard drive, right? You need to install new software. Sometimes it gets a virus, right? And you got to clear all that stuff out. So if you think of your brain about a computer, like a computer, you know, the old operating systems need to get updated. And it makes me think about how do you do that, right? You know, and granted, it's not like we're going to erase our own hard drives, but the way it could happen is by figuring out what your own internal software updates need to really be.
It's almost like a reformatting
Yeah.
a hard drive, right? So
Yeah.
we all come in with our brain, if we think about it like a computer, with the beliefs, the ideas, the worldviews that we got from our parents or grandparents, all different kinds of things. We're going to talk more about that in another episode. But then it's about how do you reformat it to be the version of who you are today? What do you want to think on purpose? And I like that. I think it's interesting. Earlier today, I was working on something and I was listening to something while I was doing something else. And I just realized I had too many tabs open in my brain, right? I was starting to get a little bit antsy, not focused. I felt like I just had noise going on. And the reality was that I did. So I had to stop listening, focus on one thing at a time so I could be intentional about what I wanted to create, what I wanted to accomplish, what I wanted to do in order then for me to move on. So that in its own self was when I was overstimulated, I guess is a way to think about it. I had to say, what was it that needed to be, what tabs needed to be closed to be able to have my brain run at an optimal level.
And the things, and I know that you know, when you really do think about changing your brain, you know, Jen and I have talked about this in the past. There's 5 things that it really takes to change your brain. And it's sleep, it's meditation, it's exercise, it's food, and it's novelty. And it's funny because novelty, what you were just saying made me think of the novelty piece of it. Because your brain kind of doesn't like change, but your brain adapts to the change. And your brain actually, the gray matter in your brain grows because of novelty. Think about years ago, you learned to juggle, and it took a bit to actually learn to juggle, but it was the novelty portion. I mean, how many times do we challenge people to not use their GPS, to go off that quote unquote automatic pilot to getting somewhere to actually create new neural pathways in the brain that are going to help you out. So, we often get stuck in a rut, and our brains get stuck there. And I like to use the example of if you're skiing. So if you're skiing, let's just say it's the first run in the morning and there's all fresh powder, and you go down that hill, you get to pick what your pathway is going to be because there is none. But then you really, really like the run, and you go back up and you do the same one again, and you go down your own pathway, and then you do it again and again and again because you really loved it. But then what happens is the path that you've created actually becomes a rut. And I don't know if any of you guys ski or not, but it's hard to get out of that rut. And you can kind of just, I don't know, you fall on your ass sometimes when you get out of the rut because you've created those ingrained beliefs. So it's almost like, okay, great, now I need to go to the top of this hill and I need to create a new pathway because I got stuck in that old one. So then it's like, okay, what's the novelty of the new one?
Yeah. It's when you think about mastering a play to win mindset, it's what used to be a groove is now a rut. What novelty can you start to introduce to your processes, working with your people, working in meetings, how you brainstorm, bringing new ways to shake the brain up to get the best ideas? There's so much possibility with this, but you have to proactively want to change your brain. And the first way to do that is just to observe the way your brain actually is. I feel like we should end with a meditation bell.
Didn't really work.
All right, see you guys soon. Thanks for listening to the Kickstart Your Edge Play to Win Leadership Podcast.
Craving more? Of course you are.
Check out our website at kickstartyouredge.com,
where we fire you up, fan the flames of your competitive edge culture, and ignite your tenacious pursuit of an all-out play to win mindset.